Welcome to this tutorial on targeted reading and use of evidence from the University of Reading Study Advice team. The tutorial is designed for you to go through at your own pace, and you can pause it at any time. This is Lewis. He knows he needs to do wider reading for his essay, but his reading list seems huge and intimidating. He doesn't know where to start. But if Lewis builds up his research approach in a targeted way, his reading will be manageable and efficient. Targeted reading means starting from your own ideas, identifying what you want to find out, being selective, reading actively, and using your evidence to support your ideas and not replace them. And this tutorial will look at each of these in turn. So starting from your own ideas. Lewis has been given the following essay question, and he starts by noting down his initial ideas in response to the question. Like Lewis, you may have initial thoughts about your essay question based upon your own previous experience and learning, ideas you've gained from lectures and seminars, and areas that you're not sure about that you want to do more research on or test with further reading. Starting from your own ideas gives your research a direction and prevents you from losing track of your own valuable thinking once you start reading everybody else's ideas. Once you've noted down your thoughts, you can use these to help you identify what you want to find out. Lewis has two main areas relating to his question that he wants to find out more about. This gives him something specific he can look for in his reading to help focus it. Like Lewis, you want to phrase what you want to find out as questions, so you can search for the answers. You want to look at where the gaps in your understanding are, so you can use your reading to help fill them. You want to think about where you might need to find more evidence or examples to illustrate your points. And you want to consider where there might be counterexamples, so you can test your ideas and thinking against alternative viewpoints. And you may find your views change and develop the more that you read. So now you've identified what you want to find out, you need to be selective in what you choose to read. Let's go back to Lewis's reading list. Now you're not expected to read everything on your reading list, and you don't need to read everything in order to be successful. You can gain many clues about whether a source will be useful from just looking at things like the titles, dates of publication and type of source, journal article, book, etc. from your reading list. For example, if you haven't encountered a topic before, it's a good idea to start by looking at a basic overview, such as a textbook or encyclopedia article, such as this encyclopedia on child development. A short introductory encyclopedia article will give you a framework of the key concepts that you can then start to build detail onto with more in-depth reading. A general book on a topic, like this introduction to major child development theorists, can be a good source to look at next. You wouldn't need to read such a book from cover to cover, but you'd use things like the index and contents page to go directly to the most relevant sections. This is why it's helpful to phrase what you want to find out as questions, so you can hunt for the answers to them. Then you may decide to look at more current research, for example in a recent journal article such as this one. Journal articles are often quite dense and detailed, so knowing the basic concepts first can help. Also, especially in the science subjects, it can be best to look at the most recent research, as often older methodologies and findings will have been surpassed and now be out of date. Once you've read 2 or 3 sources, you can start to bring your ideas together, for example by adding them to your plan or mind map, to see if you need to do further reading to fill in any gaps. This selective and staged approach will help any more reading you do be even more targeted. So when you've selected your sources, what about the reading process itself? Have you ever been in that situation where you're reading a text and highlighting it, and reading a text and highlighting it some more, and all you're left with at the end is a whole page of highlighting and no real idea of what you've just read? This is because highlighting and just reading are quite passive activities. To get the most from your reading, it's a good idea to practice active reading. And what this means is engaging with the text, thinking about it, using it to your best advantage. So if you're reading actively, you'd use the shape and the layout of the text to help you find the structure of the information. And you take notes in a way that helps you think about what you're reading, such as annotating the text or noting down keywords. So now you have your research. How do you integrate it into your writing to support your points? A good way of thinking about this is to look at a model of a paragraph. This model is just a framework, so not all your paragraphs will fit exactly into this model, but they should contain each of these elements. So first, you start your paragraph by making your point. This gives your reader a clear idea of the topic of this paragraph. Then you support your point with evidence. This will have been gained from your wider reading and research. The evidence won't stand on its own, so you need to interpret it to explain how it supports your point. And finally, you need to link your point back to your essay question to show how it contributes to your overall answer. Out of all of these elements, the evidence needs to be referenced, and it comes from your wider reading and research. But the way in which you select your points, interpret your evidence, structure your essay, and link it back to your overall answer all reveal your own thinking and choices, even if you're not explicitly writing "I think" or "my opinion is." What you're trying to avoid is simply having lots of paragraphs made up of quotes or paraphrases of other people's words without any of your own points or interpretation. Your own thinking is valuable, and this is what will get you marks. Here is an example of what a paragraph from Lewis's essay might look like, containing all of the different elements highlighted in the different colours. You can pause the tutorial at this point and look at the example in more depth if you would like to. So to recap, to be targeted in your reading and use of evidence, start from your own ideas so you can have a direction from your research. Identify what you want to find out to give your reading a focus. Be selective in what you choose to read. Start with 2 or 3 sources and identify further gaps. Read actively by annotating and engaging with what you read. And use your evidence to support your points and not replace them. Start by writing the points you want to make rather than trying to fit all the evidence you have into an essay structure. And this will ensure your essays are on target for success.